All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll start off where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memory, where are we looking?
Kind of a weird place I just went in my head. So I grew up in Northern Illinois,
Okay.
and my grandparents had like a cottage home near where my parents and I lived.
Yeah.
And my dad used to mow the lawn for them because we lived so close.
Yeah.
And my sister and I used to fight over who could ride like on the rider lawnmower to mow
Right.
the lawn. And my sister happened to win this day. And so I don't know, I had to be like 3 or 4-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, I decided it would be fun to just like run behind
Okay.
the lawnmower as he made his laps. And he rode over a yellow jacket's nest, like an underground yellow jacket's nest. And obviously it was loud, so they all like stirred up.
Yeah.
It was a very like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie My Girl,
I
where
have
like
not.
there's a scene where like her friend gets stung by a bunch of bees and he sadly dies in the movie, but I did not die. But I ran through all these bees and I just got stung up and down my whole body and just
Oh,
like
man.
collapsed. My dad had to like pick me up and carry me and take me home. And I don't know why that's where my head went, but that is the first memory that popped into
So,
my head.
did you get superpowers after that? Did you get
No,
immunity
I
to
found out I'm
something?
allergic to bees. So, yeah, so now I'm like deathly terrified, and everyone's always like, "Why are you so scared of a bee?" And I'm like, "Listen, I've got some trauma, some
So,
unhealed trauma."
so you became allergic to bees after that,
I
or
had like very bad swelling.
okay?
So, and it only got worse. So, like, as I had bee stings like later on in life, they would
Yeah.
swell like very, very badly. So, um,
Interesting.
yeah. So it was kind of how I like learned my body does not react well to
Yeah.
like them. And so like still to this day as an adult, I'm terrified of bees.
No, for sure. I was tested for allergies, and I think 48 out of the 50 things I was positive for.
Oh
And
gosh.
bees, I would have like excessive swelling, but
Yeah.
it was never bad unless I got like stung in the throat. Then they're like, "Hey, here's an EpiPen," and I was like, "Oh,
Yes.
pretty good." But there's one time that I was sneaking, I think it was like a Sprite or something, and I had put it on the beach so that like my parents wouldn't go see me drink out of it. But
Yeah.
little did I know, bees love Coke or pop or whatever it is. So I
Yeah.
went to go take a drink and it stung me in the lip.
Oh,
And for lack of being politically correct, I think my lips looked like Angelina Jolie the first day, and then like a Zulu warrior for the second day.
oh my
And
gosh.
we were on an island, and they're like, if that gets any bigger, that thing's gonna pop. I'm like, I am
Yeah.
11. What's happening here?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I got stung on my middle finger once at a sleepover and
Okay.
it really swelled so much, like it was pushing my other two fingers out.
Oh no.
So yeah, that's why like still to this day, like even with kids, I'm like,
Yeah.
get away from the bees. Stay away. It's like I will never get over it. I don't know. It was
Yeah. Well,
the most traumatizing memory.
yeah, and that would make sense. Like that one,
Yeah.
I'll give you.
That was a pretty
Um,
horrific childhood memory I just shared with you. But I
I
don't know
feel
why I went dark, but that's where I went.
So it sounds like you grew up near your family. So are we in the DeKalb area? Where are we?
No, so are you familiar? Are you from
So
Illinois?
I'm west, I'm in Batavia, so kind of like the
Oh,
Aurora area. So when you said northern, I'm
yeah.
like, I'm trying to look at the map. I feel like that's the opposite direction of DeKalb.
So a lot of people have heard of McHenry County,
Oh
if you've
yeah.
heard of that. So I'm from McHenry. People always think of the county, but I'm from the town of McHenry.
Okay.
So I was born and raised there, and then I moved when I turned 18 out west
Yeah.
for college. I went to
Okay.
University of Wyoming, and then I kind of stayed. I moved to I live in Denver right now, so
Okay.
I moved to Denver after college,
Yeah.
and then I met my husband in college. We bounced around a little bit for his
Well,
job.
we'll rewind a
Get
little
there.
bit.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so you lived next to your family. Um,
Yes.
was it just like your parents' side of the grandparents, or is a bunch of family living?
Oh, yeah. So my entire family on both sides was like Chicago suburbs.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
my dad's parents immigrated from Germany,
Okay.
and so he was first generation born.
Yeah.
So they came through Chicago. And then my mom's parents, her dad was like in the army
Okay.
and they were older. She was kind of an oops. So her parents passed away when I was pretty young,
Okay.
but like all her siblings and my cousins and everyone is kind of
Yeah.
all that like northern
Oh,
suburbs of Chicago.
that's
So that,
great.
yeah.
I have a wide variety of age groups of people on here, and I'm trying to figure out when exactly the community kind of went away and
Yeah, I
when it got
know.
when we got too busy.
Mhm.
What was the setup for you? Was it Sundays, like once a month? Like how often did you interact with your family?
Oh gosh. Well, so if you're also familiar with Skokie, have you ever
Yep.
heard of? Okay, so my grandparents lived there. We were really, really close with my dad's side, I would say more so than my mom's. My mom's we used to see on big holidays like
Okay.
Thanksgiving and stuff. My dad's family we saw like I would say once a month.
Yeah.
Drive was like a little over an hour maybe with traffic.
Nice.
So we would see them like once a month and we'd go for like a whole Saturday. So like
Okay.
it would be like, several hours we'd go and then like Christmas every year, obviously, but like we would stay with our grandparents for 2 weeks every summer.
Wow.
So that was really fun. And my dad's parents were actually really young for grandparents.
Okay.
So my grandpa was like super involved. He'd take us to the park all the time and like jump off the swings with us. And
Yeah.
then, so yeah, we were really close, I would say, like with my dad's parents and
Mm.
his sister, who was kind of like an older sister because she was a lot younger than
Yeah.
my dad. So
So
yeah.
growing up, did you have brothers and sisters? Did you have a lot of people to play with wherever you were at?
Yeah, just one sister. And we lived in a pretty small town. So the schools weren't great. And my parents ended up putting us in like a Lutheran school that was like 30 minutes from where we lived. So all of our friends lived really far.
Okay.
So it was kind of her and I growing up. There wasn't like a ton of kids in the neighborhood
Yeah.
either. So most of my memories are like playing with her.
Okay.
Uh, and then my cousins lived pretty far too in Naperville. So like we didn't see them as often.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister and I were super, no, not as little children. We weren't super close, but as we've gotten older,
Yeah.
super, super close to her. So
So since there wasn't a lot of kids around, did you really enjoy the school? Or did you do sports? What did activities look like after school?
yeah, so I was in basketball and track
Okay.
through high school. And then in college, I did like all the intramurals basically.
Yeah.
That's how I met my husband. But yeah, we both of us were like super physical, like always into different sports. I tried a bunch, but basketball was my favorite. And
Yeah.
then track was probably what I was best at, just from
So
like a
when
performance.
you're in like the middle school, high school area, are your parents forcing you to do sports? Or are you like, hey, I'm just athletic? What was around that?
They were very like whatever you want to do is fine with us. So
Yeah.
like my parents didn't really grow up playing sports.
Okay.
My dad played baseball, but again, since he was like first generation in the United States, like his parents didn't really put a huge emphasis on sports. And then my
Yeah.
mom, she had her own like family stuff going on. So she just kind of did like what they did in gym class. She didn't
Mhm.
really like play sports.
Yeah.
So we got involved like very late. Like my sister, I don't think she's 4 years older. And I don't think she started sports till like sixth or seventh grade. So she
Okay.
was like way older. And then since I was 4 years younger, I kind of benefited to just like starting things earlier.
Yeah.
So I think I was like second grade maybe when I started doing like soccer and but my very first like basketball camp. But they were very much like, if you don't like it, you just have to finish the season that
Yeah.
you signed up for. But then like if you don't want to do it after that, you don't have to. So
Mhm. As
yeah.
far as growing up in like both their individual situations, and I feel like the second generation is like, hey, like we have a lot of things afforded to us. Like I played sports at a very young age, and but
Mhm.
them growing up, it was just like our parents are just like trying to make it.
Yeah,
So
totally.
how did they kind of convey like, hey, we're here to enjoy life, or it was like you gotta listen to me? Like what was the trying not to use the word vibe. I feel like I used vibe a lot this year. But what was the environment around like just being around your parents?
It was very much a message of like you have to work hard to get what you want in life. I think we grew up very middle class,
Yeah,
um, very paycheck to paycheck for most of my childhood. So I think my early memories are like, don't spend money you don't need to spend. It was always very focused on like, you have to work hard, you have to earn what you
yeah,
want. No one's going to hand anything to you. And I do think that's coming from the way both of my parents were raised.
Okay.
Um, and so I just grew up thinking like, if I don't need it, I don't need to buy it.
Yeah.
And if I really want it, no one's going to give it to me. So like I
Yeah.
have to work for it. So I would say that was like very much the message of my childhood. And still to this day, like I think it's funny because now having my own kids, I find myself being like, we don't need this. Like you don't have to buy everything you want. You don't get everything you want. So it's
Yeah.
like ingrained in me as an adult.
Yeah.
So
Did they teach you those lessons by it was just you saw them never buying in excess and then you
yes.
just didn't want it, or did they say, "Hey, you're not getting like what was how did they communicate that to
It
you?"
was both. I would say like my mom, she was more the one that like handled the money and the
Okay.
finances, and she was very strict about like this is how much we have to spend every month, and like
Okay. A budget.
we don't need this. So, like it would be like for like school shopping, for instance, it was
Yeah.
like here's how much we have to spend for like what you need for school. So like you can
Okay.
pick what you need and like whatever, but nothing above that
Yeah.
unless you want to dip into like your Christmas money.
Gotcha.
Which I never wanted to do because I was like, for some reason, like hoarding that for
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
But it
I
was,
think
yeah,
that's very interesting because my mom, like she was very frugal, and we'd be like, "Mom, you have three pairs of shoes?" I'm like, and she's like, "Yes, these are all my running shoes. After and it was a really good deal, and I'm gonna have these
yes,
for the next like 3 years."
yes, yes. Like for basketball, my mom would be like, you get one new pair of shoes and that's your pair of shoes. Like you're not the kid that has like three different pairs of basketball shoes on the
Yep.
court. Like you get one. And then when those don't fit you, you can have a new pair. But
Yeah.
it was very much like only purchase or like only out of necessity. Like there was
Mhm.
never like a ton of excess. And not
Yeah.
to say like we didn't have a wonderful childhood. We absolutely did. We never went without. We always had what we needed, but it was
Yeah.
like very much a message of like, you don't need to be wasteful, I
Yeah.
guess. So I've kind of just carried that throughout my whole life.
Yeah, I think that as we're raising our children, it's been tough because there's so much given, and there's like, oh, let's
Yes.
just get them toys, 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 and then there's the
Yes.
I would like that, and I want that. It's like perfect. We'll put it on your Christmas list, and there isn't a sense of entitlement, but she does get a lot of stuff.
Yes. People love to buy your kids stuff. And it comes from a good place. I think
Absolutely.
that's part of it. But like, the other day I told you this obviously because we had to reschedule this
Yep.
podcast. We moved, which is why like all these shelves are so bare behind me, still organizing this space. But we were going through, my daughter's clothes because we were organizing her new room, and she has so many clothes that she's been given, or like
Yeah.
even hand downs where it's like people give you all this stuff. And I'm going through, I'm like, you do not wear half of these clothes. So we did donate
Yeah.
versus keep. And it was like the first exercise I've ever done with her like that.
Yeah.
And she was having a really hard time donating because she's like, but I love this. And I'm
Right.
like, but we don't wear it. We don't use it. And it can go to somebody who needs it. And
Yeah.
so we had a whole conversation about how there's a lot of people who don't have everything they need. And
Right.
if you give these away, they'll go to someone who hopefully can benefit. And so I think it's just like little things like that that you can try to teach your kids
Mhm.
from an early age that like there are people that have to go without. And so if we
Yeah.
can help in some capacity, you
Mhm.
know.
So growing up, as far as academics, did your parents also say that you have to get A's, or like what was their thoughts around it?
Yeah. So education's interesting with my family because no, we were the first people in our family to go to college.
Okay.
So my aunt, actually my dad's sister, she was 12 years younger than my dad. So
Mhm.
she went to college, but she didn't finish.
Okay.
Um, and then my sister and I were the first college graduates in our family
Okay.
on my actually on both sides. So it was very much pushed, like you have to go to college, you have to do well in school because that's how you succeed in life. And I do
Yeah.
think, again, it comes from a place of like, we always had, we didn't struggle financially, but my dad had to work really hard to like
Yeah.
have everything we had. He went to trade school, so he went a different route.
Yeah.
He had a very successful career, but his whole thing was like, we're growing up in a time where a lot of people need two incomes. So like
Mhm.
you need to be built to provide in some capacity. Not everyone, right? Like we have a situation where we are very fortunate. Like if I didn't want to work, I probably wouldn't have to, but
Yeah.
I think I'm just hardwired to think like you got to provide, you got to help, you got to contribute, and I think that was just how they didn't want us to have to struggle as adults.
Yeah.
So education was definitely pushed,
Okay.
and to do well in school was important to my parents for sure.
And how did you take it upon yourself to do well? Was it a certain type of studying? Was it asking questions? How did you perform at your best when you were in high school?
So my sister loves to tell this story because her and I are very different in this way. I was like the nerd. I
Okay.
was a bookworm. I studied a lot. She always tells this story that I somehow had my teacher's phone number in middle school. I don't know how. I don't know like it was
How
like a
that
situation.
happened, but it happened.
Yeah, or if it was like I called the school. I can't really remember the story. She would probably laugh about this that I'm telling it, but vividly remembers me asking for extra credit homework because I like wanted to boost my grade. And she was like, "You are the only person I know who calls your teacher to ask for more homework." Like, but that was just like how I was wired. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to be like, I don't know. I was just really wired to want to succeed, I guess,
Yeah.
always.
That's
She was
incredible.
and she was always like, C's get degrees. Who cares? Just everyone gets, as long as you get the degree, you're good. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. No one's going to ask for your GPA. And so it's just so funny because we both like, it just is a good, I don't know, like childhood preface into like
Right.
who we became as adults. Cause she is such more like the artsy, like she's super successful designer.
Yeah.
And she just has that more abstract way of thinking. And I'm so
Yeah.
like regimented and like I have to do things very specifically,
Yeah.
which I think is probably why I'm an entrepreneur.
Would would
So,
would you say your success was more motivation for fear or motivation for just wanting to do well and, for lack of a better term, love of the game, love just
uh,
loving it?
it's a good question. I think probably both,
Okay.
honestly. Like if deep down to my core, I always have this feeling of like it can all be taken away at any time.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just like a childhood, fear of like things can be really hard and you can struggle and like especially now having kids, I think success looks different to me now than it did like before I had kids
Yeah.
because you have these like little people that depend on you. And so I think it's a little bit out of fear, but it's also about like achievement. I think
Okay.
I've always been like an achievement focused person.
Mhm.
It's like I set these really high goals for myself.
Yeah.
And I've learned that that's not the best way to approach situations because like you can achieve the achievement and then sometimes it still feels a little empty. So I think
Right.
you have to focus on like the right reasons, like why you're doing something and
Yeah.
what the right driver, I guess, is.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, even if you achieve those things, it still doesn't feel like super satisfying.
Oh, absolutely. So, uh, as far as going through either like mental or physical struggles during high school, how did you deal with them? As far as like, did you journal about it? Did you talk to your parents? Did you kind of just keep it in tight? What are we looking at?
I think I was more of a keep it in tight
Okay.
type. As much as I hate to admit that, I think I've always been one that like I don't want to like complain or I don't want to like show that I'm not grateful for things.
Okay.
And so like even my sister will joke, she's like such an open book with her emotions and she'll always like tell me
Yeah.
when she's struggling. She's like, I never know when you're struggling because you don't want to
Okay.
like seem like you're complaining. So I think I've always kind of been that way. I just internalized and I realized as an adult that that's not the best way to handle things.
Yeah.
Having at least like one or two people that you can go to like talk about things you're struggling with is healthy, at least.
So,
Um,
so what was something that you went through in high school that you're like, hey, like hindsight should have went about it a different way, but it was something that you struggled through?
I think just not really being sure of what I wanted to do or be. I felt a lot of pressure to like have things figured out. And I don't know if I put that on myself or if it was just kind of something my parents were like, you got to know what you want to be. You got to know, I don't
Yeah.
really know where that came from, but I think just feeling a lot of, especially like leading into college, because there was
Okay.
so much emphasis on like, you got to get a college degree, you got to succeed, you got to be successful. And it wasn't coming from a bad place, but I
Right.
think like feeling like I needed to have things figured out made me a little panicked. And so,
Gotcha.
especially when I started college, I like major jumped a lot because I
Okay.
didn't know where I wanted to go. And like it just felt very stressful, I think, in that
Yeah.
capacity. Um,
for figuring out where you were going to college and things of that nature, what was the steps on figuring out, oh, this is what I want to, oh, this is what I can do?
Yeah, so it's funny. I told you my whole family lived in Illinois, so I
Yep.
never really saw myself leaving. I think I always saw myself staying like at Illinois school,
Okay.
graduating, moving to Chicago. Like that was kind of my life plan, if you will.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I had a student teacher, and she was an Illinois girl, but she went to University of Wyoming, and she was doing her student teaching
Okay.
at my high school.
Yeah.
And I always told her, I was like, I've just always had this urge to go west. And I don't know why. I don't know where it
Mm.
came from. I think I just was always drawn to like the mountains and that style of living, but I'd never been here. So like I
Yeah.
didn't even know what it was like. And I was like, I looked at schools in Colorado and it just seems like too expensive. The tuition was like outrageous in
Okay.
Colorado. She's like, you should look into Wyoming. Like if you want that style of living, it's actually cheaper in-state tuition or out-of-state tuition in Wyoming than in-state in Illinois. And I remember being like, no way.
That doesn't
I'll
make
look
sense.
into it. And again, I feel like at that point I was very like financially savvy of
Yeah.
like, I want to spend a ton on a degree. I was going to carry that student debt and I just didn't want to have like a massive payment. So I was like, whatever, I'll just look at it. And I remember road tripping with my dad to Wyoming and being like, wow, like they have a McDonald's here. Like this isn't, I thought Wyoming was like the middle of nowhere woods. Like I had
Yeah.
no concept of what it looked like. And I was like, okay, so they've got like Walmart and McDonald's. Like it's a normal place
It's
here.
everything. They got
They
everything.
have
Come on.
stuff. Like just, it's just so funny. Like looking back at my 18-year-old or 17-year-old self, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this feeling of like you can't leave the nest, all your family's here, you can't be the one that leaves, and then just being like, you know what? I think like for some reason my heart is drawing me to like step outside my comfort zone and like
Yeah.
move out of the comfort zone of having my parents so close. So I was actually like all set to go to Illinois State. I had my tuition down payment in and everything. I had a roommate assignment and last
Oh,
minute pulled the plug and decided to go to Wyoming.
okay. So what was your first moment where you're like, uh-oh, maybe I made a mistake?
The first time I got sick. I just remember like sitting in the dorms being like, what do I do? Like, who do I call? I'm sick. And my mom's like, go to the doctor. Like, what's wrong with you? But it was
Yeah.
just so funny because I remember being like, do I need to bring my insurance? Like, how does this work? She's like, go to student health. Like, just, it was like I was so scared of being an adult and
Yeah.
like taking those steps. I think like my mom did a lot for us. Like, we're very lucky. She was,
Yeah.
so type A and like so great at being a mom that like when I got the training wheels kicked off, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to do any of this. So I think that was the first. And then I think settling in that first semester because you don't have anyone, your family's really far. So it's
Yeah.
like, you don't have the creature comforts that you have when you are closer to home, I guess.
Right.
And so I think it was like up to that Thanksgiving break. That was the first time I went home.
Oh,
And
wow.
then, yeah. And then going home, I was like, I hate it, and my parents kept being like, just give it a semester, give it a year, whatever you
Yeah.
need. But then after that first year, I loved it. So it
Really?
just, yeah,
That's
I think,
fantastic.
yeah.
As far as like cooking and things of that nature, did you have like a good schedule as far as, oh, I see
Oh.
some head shaking.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just now entering my like cooking era as
Yeah.
an adult. Like I was the worst. I was like
So
Easy
what
Mac,
are we getting into?
cereal, like, oh God, ramen. It was like the worst of the worst
Yeah.
possible food. Anything you could throw in a microwave or like add milk to was basically my diet my first year of college. And then I remember making my first like boxed mac and cheese when I
Yeah.
got my first apartment. I was like, I've made it. Like
We're doing it.
I'm doing it. I made like grilled cheese and tomato soup out of a can. And I was like, I'm an adult. Like, look at me, I'm cooking, It was just like such a joke now,
Yeah.
especially because I'm such a health focused human at this point in my life. So yeah, it was pretty comical. Terrible diet. I was fortunate for it to like not affect a ton of things for me at that time. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So, well, I imagine for it not to affect you too much, you probably weren't drinking 2 to 3,000 calories of alcohol each night.
Yeah. I was never a heavy drinker. I will say that. People used to joke in college that I was like the mom.
Yeah.
I had my friends that would go out like Wednesday to Sunday,
Yeah.
basically. And then I was always the one that was like, I only go out like 1 or 2 nights a week and I keep it really, I was always very responsible.
Yeah.
Everyone always describes me as like an old soul, I guess. So I've always been kind of like straight edge,
Yeah.
just never really got in trouble. And yeah, probably like the lamest
What
at the
what
party.
what was the time you either got into the most amount of trouble or almost the most amount of trouble in college?
Oh, I think there was a period, I did like my senior year feeling a little bit like, what's next? I had a couple months during that phase where I was drinking probably more than like a typical college student where you're just
Yeah.
like, you need to lock it up a little bit. But just like walking home from the bars by myself at
Okay.
night, like little things like that, where it was just
Yeah.
like, I started picking up these habits that weren't like the smartest, I would
Yeah.
say, just thinking you're invincible. And again, it was like small town Wyoming, so you feel pretty safe.
Yeah.
But I think it was just like losing sight of like that things can happen and
Okay.
just be comfortable with like making bad choices.
Yeah. I
Hopefully
mean,
for
some people's responses were cocaine, so I think walking
yeah,
home, I think that's a pretty good
I told you I'm straight edge. I walked home from the bar by myself. That was probably like
one.
the
Just
worst thing
old
I did
file.
in college. I know.
So as you're jumping around looking for what degree that you want, how'd you come upon the one that you picked?
So kind of interesting. I bounced around a lot. I started off as a nursing major
Okay.
because in high school I actually took a class. I got my CNA. So I was a nursing assistant in like the summers and then and that was kind of like my college job
Yeah.
and summer job was I would work in a nursing home and I'd take care of senior
That
patients.
seems that's incredibly difficult.
It's so hard.
I had a girlfriend once that was a CNA and she would tell me about her day and I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah.
Like I just say no and leave. Like that's
Yeah. It's
unbelievable.
like it was really emotionally taxing, but I think during that process I realized like I really resonated with seniors. I like loved that population. I felt like they had the best stories, they could give you the best guidance. Like I just always felt like I had this ease with them where I
Okay.
could communicate and like the conversations were just easy. Even some of our most difficult patients, like at that time when I was a CNA, because I worked with a lot of patients who had dementia. And
Oh,
so uh, for whatever reason, there was this one woman I still will never forget, like 18-year-old Rachel going into her room, getting her ready for bed at night. And
yeah.
no one could get her to crack a smile. And for whatever reason, she really liked me. And so I always had to do like her nighttime routine.
Yeah.
But we would laugh and then she would ask about me. And like, it was just funny because everyone was like, she's so hard. She's so mean. And I'm like, I don't think she is. I think she's just a little misunderstood. So it was
Yeah.
just like one of those things where I just really connected.
Yeah.
I thought through that process that I wanted to be a nurse. And then I got into nursing school and I was like, this ain't it. This
I
ain't it.
I would say
What'd you say?
I was just to say working with elderly people, it really puts perspective behind things. And it's like they've
Mhm.
lived 85 years and now this
Yes.
is the person that they are and they're gonna let you know. They're gonna
Yeah, totally. And I think like when you actually like, sit down and talk to people, like their stories are
Yeah,
so interesting, like what lives they've lived in 90 years,
yeah.
it's just pretty fascinating. And so, but then I struggled and I couldn't quite figure out where I wanted to go. And so I actually ended up in dietetics for
Okay,
most of my 4 years. And then dietetics happened to be under a specialization. It was at Wyoming, it was under family and consumer sciences.
okay.
And I was a semester away from graduating with a dietetics degree, and you have to do an internship
Yep.
with that. And I just remember being like, I just don't know if this is what I want to do for a career. Like I was fascinated in learning about nutrition and how it affected the body, but I was just like, I just don't know if this is like the job I want, if that makes
Right.
sense. So I switched my specialization last minute to human development.
Okay.
And so it was still under the same degree. So I was able to graduate on time and everything. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'll just figure it out. I thought I was going to go back to get my master's at
Yeah.
some point. And so I was just like, I'll graduate, I'll get my bachelor's, I'll work for a year and reassess.
Yeah.
So I moved to Denver and I got a job as a personal trainer in a nursing home. And I ended up in this like physical therapy department. So I was
Yeah.
working with PTs, OTs, speech pathologists, you name it. So I actually thought I wanted to go back to be an OT,
Okay.
occupational therapist, if you're not familiar with the
And
term.
that's more fine motor skill, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep. And so, and some like cognition mixed in there too,
Yeah.
where you're like doing memory games and stuff. And I just thought it was fascinating, like what they would do with like stroke patients and things. And
Yeah.
so I thought I was going to go back to school for that. And then I just was like, I don't know, being 22, I think is so hard because you feel like you have to have everything figured out. And it's just such an early time in your life to know what you want to do, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I've tested out 5 things. I like a couple of them. Let's pick the rest for the next 40 years.
Yes, it's so hard. And so I remember at that point being like, I don't feel confident enough to know if I want to like pursue another degree.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was like, it was actually very random. There was here in Denver, there was a job opening at a company called KPMG, and they were looking for green people who had college degrees that were looking to get into like IT consulting. And so I was like, why not just do something off the cuff? See if I can like, what if I find like a hidden hobby or interest
Yeah.
or
I'm
whatever?
trying to see the connection here, and I'm like,
There
I don't
isn't. There isn't. You won't find one. You won't find one. It was other than the fact that like I'm very analytical
yeah.
and I'm very like I can nerd out on things. And so I was like, whatever, maybe I'll like this. Who knows? I'll just try. And so I was like, I'm just gonna go for it and just see. And so I ended up being an HR software consultant for 7 years. Um,
All right. So is it cold calling? You're going into the office?
no,
What's
so
happening?
it was like think of like the software any company runs on to do
Yep.
payroll, benefits, performance, all that. So there's a team of people that will come in to implement that software, and that
Yep.
was what I did.
Oh,
So
you
you,
were implementing it. You weren't doing the
yes,
sales itself.
no,
Okay.
I wasn't on the
You were
sales side.
you were handling it.
Yeah. So there's two types of consultants. There's a functional consultant and a technical consultant.
Yeah.
They make you do some technical classes because you need to be able to speak to code to some
Yeah.
degree. And then, but I was more client facing. So I was functional. I was doing the demos. I
Okay.
would build the public facing portal. And then if I needed help with like, I need this page to do X, Y, and Z, I would have my technical counterpart write the
Yeah.
code behind. So it was like yeah, it was a lot of travel. Basically, I had a job where I lived in Seattle part-time for
Yeah.
like 2 years. I had a couple other projects in Ohio and then a couple in Chicago.
Okay.
So yeah, I was like all over the place.
I have a couple of friends that are consultants, and I'm like, what do you do other than
Yeah.
travel and have a business card?
Yeah, it's funny because it's means different things to different
Yeah.
industries. Like there's so many different career paths with consulting. So it's such a broad term. But then I ended up let's see, I was on like the client facing side. Like I was implementing for several different companies. And then
Yeah.
because I was like, you know what, I just want to do it for one company. So
Okay.
I ended up working for Hilton corporate out of
Like
Dallas.
the hotels?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm catching on. Well,
Yeah.
if we can go back just a hair.
Yeah. Sorry,
Oh,
I'm jumping ahead.
well, no, I like to simplify things.
Yeah.
So when you're working with a company and you're implementing the software and you're building out the forward facing what the customer is seeing,
Portal. Yeah.
why does it take so long?
Oh my gosh, because it's with anything, there's constant like bug fixes and they implement new versions of things. And like you're trying to basically replicate what the client's doing today in a new software. And that's very hard because it's never apples to apples. It's always apples to oranges. And you're like, this software can't do that.
Yeah.
Or this software can do these 5 things, but not that one thing. And so you're trying to basically find a way to like replace something that they have and they need to keep going because like you can't not pay people. You
Right.
can't not deliver benefits. So like those are all really crucial tasks that they could be really liable for if they
Yeah.
fall through or they don't work. So like think about, you're implementing a software and a bug happens
Yeah.
and nobody's paychecks go out for all of Hilton. Like
Gotcha.
you're screwed, right? You're in really big trouble. So it's like there's so much on the line to make sure. And there's other modules. Like I worked in Learn, which is like the learning modules, like whenever you have to take a
Yeah.
class or whatever through your company or like, liability training or whatever. Or there's like performance where like your end of the year reviews, like those are like less intense to work on because they're like, if like a performance review goes out a day late, it's not as big of a deal
Yeah.
versus like if someone doesn't get paid,
So, so give me like a hectic day, and are you putting out fires? Are you saying we need to change this code and then test it? Like
Yeah,
what? It seems that trying to individualize the stuff,
it's
a lot
hard.
of these companies are similar, but it still seems to take a hell of a time.
And it's a lot of the processes are like super archaic, especially when you get into like the companies I was working with were massive. Like they're
Okay.
not small, like little mom and pop shops. It's like I worked for IBM at the
Okay.
time. And so I started at KPMG and then I moved to IBM. And then after that, I started working with Hilton.
Okay.
So all like very large companies with these big procedures and check the box situations that they can't,
Gotcha.
you got to basically follow procedures. And so like when I was at IBM, one of my clients was in Ohio and it was a government client.
Yeah.
Again, with like any kind of government client, you have to have everything like by the book or they can get in trouble. So it's
Okay.
like,
That
it's,
I was just say that makes more sense because I was just a volunteer at the King County Clerk in Geneva, and I saw
yeah,
how things got done, and
yeah,
some of it was still done on note cards, and,
yeah.
they had a it was funny. I was actually supposed to review. Well, I reviewed a contract bid for them to bring in software, and it
Mhm.
was massive. It was only a single bid though, but
Expensive. It's really
that
expensive.
makes sense why it would be expensive if it's just
And it's a process, right?
yeah.
Like it's a whole timeline because you go, you gather their requirements, and then you talk through like process optimization. And like some people are willing to say, like, yeah, this needs some work. And some people are like, no, this works. Don't, it's not broke. Don't fix it. We
Okay.
want this exact process in this new system. So like there's this whole requirements gathering phase. And then you have to take all of that information and try to translate it into the new software. And the
Yeah.
hard part, what was really tough about my job was I wasn't the one selling it.
Yeah.
I was the one implementing it. So like I'd have a sales guy that'd be like, yeah, we can do that. No problem. We got it. We can do that.
They're
Oh yeah,
really good
sure.
at
We can
getting the
figure that
sale.
out. And then they make the sale and I'm like, it doesn't do that. So then I have to be the bad guy that's like, you sold X and it doesn't do that. And we can't like the software I was working with at the time had like a closed API. So like you're much more limited on what you can
Stayed
do
within the
versus like
yeah.
an open API where you can tweak some things. I'm like, I can't make it do that. It's a
Yeah.
closed code. Like you can't just like make stuff up with this. It's like the software is what it is and it's very limited.
Yeah.
So like you sold them that it could do this. Now they bought it and they're pissed at me because I'm telling them I can't do that. And
Yeah.
so I think that was the hardest part of the job. And then they'd be like, we'll figure out a way to make it work.
Right.
So
It's
then
making
a lot of
more
times you're
sense.
doing these like insane processes, like the system's not designed to do what we're making it do.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of testing. So like you have to write all these test scripts and then you have like 30 people from the client running through these test scenarios to make sure that the system functions
Yeah.
how they expect it to. And then you go into like moving into production. So it's like a very detail oriented process that's not very quick.
So then do you just have a checklist of like, all right, we're doing this. I'm gonna go t say so and so go do this. I'm gonna go sit in my office, or like, did you have offices? Were you always on the road? What was?
It was a mix, like depending on the client. Some clients had like cubicles set up for us, so we would have like designated workspaces. Or some clients just had like long tables in conference rooms. Those were the worst because like you're working with like all these people who are on the phone all the time, and you're like, I'm trying to like sit and focus.
Yeah.
But like usually you had like a cubicle of sorts
Yeah.
that you could get your work done. But a lot of these projects required you to be on site Monday through Thursday. So
Ooh.
it was brutal. I mean, at the time I was young
Yeah.
and no kids or anything. So I was like, whatever, I'll be wherever you need me to be.
Yeah.
Um, but then you're only in the place you live the weekend,
Yeah.
basically. So like, it sucked because you get home from a trip. and pending nothing delayed that flight, which a lot of times they did, especially in Denver because the weather.
Yeah.
I would go home and then you basically go to bed. You spend all of Saturday doing like laundry
Right.
and like feed yourself. And then Sunday you're getting ready for another trip. So it's like you don't really have a life
Yeah.
outside of work.
Well, you're finally making a bunch of money, and then maybe
Yeah.
we could spend a little bit of it, but I don't have time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it was just like I felt like my friends were like, we never see you and like you're always gone. And then
You're
it
right.
just it literally becomes like your coworkers kind of become your friends and
Yeah.
like who you're on the road with all the time is who you spend your time with. So it's like, that was like my circle of friends at the time.
Yeah. Hope they don't suck.
No, yeah, exactly. Thankfully I had a good group,
That's
but
good. So we decide to move to Hilton. What's going on there?
I actually really liked that job. They let me work remote, which was great. So I was working out of Denver. I only had to travel like once a month, which was really nice. And it was much slower paced job because I was just managing the software at that point.
Okay.
So I wasn't doing any implementation work. It was just like anytime there was a new release, which was
Yeah.
usually once a quarter,
Okay.
I'd be responsible for like the test scripts and making sure everything worked and nothing broke the weekend it got implemented. And then we'd be on calls like the whole weekend basically when new
Yeah.
rollouts would happen, and then you just cross your fingers, hope nothing broke,
Yeah.
and that was it. So it was actually really it was fun. It was a good job for that period of time, but the problem was I had just gotten married
Okay.
that job, and then we were starting to talk about having kids, and it wasn't that I couldn't do that job. It was just, it would be hard because my husband had a job that required him to travel quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so we're both like, if we're both traveling for work, like who's taking care of these children?
Right.
Like someone has to like be home or like, I don't know, having like a nanny stay overnight, I guess is a possibility, but it's expensive. So like,
Mm.
how are we going to make this work?
Yeah.
That was around the time I started having what I like to call my quarter life crisis.
Love it.
Trying to figure out like what was next after that because I was just like, I can't, this isn't feasible long term. And unfortunately, at that job, I would have to keep traveling. So,
Okay.
uh,
So then
yeah.
was there someone that walked in front of you and started a conversation, or how did we get past that quarter life crisis?
So I started a business, my first business.
Love it.
So I had a long discussion with my husband, and I was like, if kids are on the list for us, like I need to pivot. I don't think this is feasible for like kind of the lifestyle we want to have with our own kids.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went back to the drawing board and went back to my love of working with seniors, and kind of that personal training job I had to start it all
Yeah.
was my favorite job. And so I'm like, what if I just made my own business and do that? And so it
Just
would
make my
be
own business.
make my own business. And so I had a lot of contacts in the senior living industry here in
Okay.
Denver. So I was like, I could reach out to those contacts, do classes, I could do one-on-ones, and we'll just see how it goes. But at least it'd be a local business that wouldn't require me to travel. So I launched, and this was March of 2020.
Oh, perfect timing. Let's go. Send it.
So COVID hit, and then I was working with the most vulnerable population
Yeah.
of that time. And I remember putting in my notice. This was probably February of 2020. And my boss called me like when my 2 weeks were supposed to be up. And she goes, if you want to stay and
Hmm.
just pretend this like business of yours isn't happening,
Yeah.
like I will pretend you didn't put in your notice. And I was like, no, like I have to trust my gut.
Yeah.
This is what I feel like I can still make this work.
Yeah.
What's really ironic is because COVID hit so many different industries, I would have been laid off anyway. Um,
Oh, okay.
because almost the entire remote team at that time in my department was let go just because no one was staying
Yeah.
in hotels. Like it was just everyone took a hit in some capacity.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of like any non-essential workers at that time weren't staying. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I don't know for sure if I would have been on the list, but I can imagine I would because I was remote. And it was most of the remote employees.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was one of those things like I probably would have lost my job a month later anyway.
Yeah.
But
So
um,
how did we pivot?
we pivoted. So I reached out to all my contacts and I started getting some one-on-one clients, and I had contracts to like start teaching, and
Yeah.
then the lockdowns happened. And so what I ended up doing is I had to get COVID tested twice a week, like
Hey.
the big painful ones too, like
Yeah.
that went really high up your nose. So I had to get COVID tested twice a week, and then it was like every Monday and Thursday. And then I had to wear a shield, I had to wear gloves and a mask.
Okay.
Uh, and as long as I tested negative, I was able to see clients, but it was just so sweaty
Yeah.
all the time
Oh
because I'm
no.
like trying to like, teach your clients and like speak, and you're just like, but my whole job is like talk to people. And so I'm like
Right.
sweating inside this like contraption I had to wear. Um, but it was like it worked, it was fine. And then I got pregnant with my daughter that August.
Yeah.
And
So
so
how
then
when working with those clients, how did you figure out what you were gonna do? How did you figure out pricing? What was the discovery like on that?
So I obviously like was a personal trainer, so I
Yeah.
like knew how to structure programming. I took a senior specialization course just so
Okay.
I was extra focused on that population and what they needed. And obviously to keep them safe because it's different than training like you or me,
Yeah.
like obviously just a different crowd, right? So I had those extra specializations at that time. And then I just kind of looked around to what different personal trainers that own their own businesses in the Denver area were charging and kind of
Yeah.
went off. So I did package pricing.
Okay.
So you could do like a monthly subscription where I came up to 5 times a week,
Yeah.
or you could purchase like a set number of sessions
Okay.
and use them basically whenever you wanted throughout the year. And then
Yeah.
they expire after a
Very
year.
nice. And then
Uh,
as far as like the elderly, the specialty, what do you feel like you saw the most success with, like as far as like after consistency, like I saw a bunch of improvements, they could do this, they could do that. What were you seeing?
so I would say balance training is probably
Okay.
like the most overlooked thing you can work on with that population. I think strength training is obviously number one, like that is, but that's the
Yeah.
most obvious. Strength obviously like declines as we age and our muscle mass goes down, but I think that's like the most easy to see is
Yeah.
strength training, but it's less obvious that they need to work on balance.
Yeah.
And there's so many fun ways to implement balance training. And that was always one that I was proud of to see get better because you're like that's what protects them from falling,
Yeah.
if anything. And that's one of the biggest causes of mortality in the senior population is falls.
Hmm.
So I think that was probably the most exciting. And when they felt more confident, even just like standing on one leg, where you're like, that is an everyday task that you need to feel
Yeah.
confident in. So yeah, I think that would be probably what I would say for that.
That's fantastic. And then where did you decide like I need to do more of this, I need to do more of that? Not necessarily just as far as like the exercises, but just as far as like the career and business.
So I think it was kind of a mix of two things. It was a mix of like we just kind of survived COVID.
Right.
We were kind of coming out on the other side of like things were starting to open up more cautiously. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. And so it
Yeah.
was like I wanted to be home somewhat with her. I didn't want to be out all day, with clients in person the whole day and then
Mhm.
have to like have her in some sort of childcare situation at
Right.
like from a very young age. And so I was trying to figure out how do I balance this? Like, how do I keep this career going? The business was doing well, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to drop it because I'm having a baby.
Mm.
Um, and so that was when I started kind of looking into the possibility of online training
Okay.
and growing kind of like an online practice, if you will. And so I started posting online more. At that point, my business was called Ridge Senior Fitness.
Okay.
So now that business today is known as Osteoporosis Trainer.
Gotcha.
Uh, and so at that point, I was like just kind of posting to post. I was posting my clients mostly and just
Yeah.
like workouts I was doing with them in hopes that I could get people to like contact me about working with me online. And
Yeah.
it like wasn't happening. So I took like a business class at that point, and it kind of changed the whole trajectory of that business
Let's go.
for the better.
What was the business class through and what did they focus on?
So she's actually a dietitian who she started an online practice for intuitive eating and like teaching people how to implement that,
Yeah.
especially people with like disordered eating issues. And so then when she had a lot of success in her own program, she started teaching like a business version of that class, which was essentially like, here's what I did, here's what worked,
Yeah.
here's like some templates to get you started, and then I can coach you through like how to start.
Yeah.
And that was essentially what I did. And at that time, there was a couple coaches in the program who were like, hey, like senior fitness is specific, but it's probably not specific enough. Like you need
Okay.
to niche down more.
Yeah.
And like now looking back, I think what they said was accurate. Like it worked really well for me. But then it also, I think if I would have stuck with senior fitness, it probably would have been niche enough.
Yeah.
I don't know for a fact. Obviously, I can't go back in time and like prove that theory, but
Yeah.
to me, it does still feel very niche. But I changed and I started specializing in osteoporosis training because most of my clients had osteoporosis or
Okay.
some degree of bone loss at that time. And so I was a product of going viral, to be frank with you. I had a couple videos that did really well. And then at that point, because they had advised me, like, you should change your handle to
Okay.
osteoporosis trainer because it's more specific. So it's kind of the perfect storm of a video doing well and then
Yeah.
being super specific. And then my account blew up and
And you were ready for it. You had
yeah,
the templates in place and all that, which is phenomenal.
yeah. And so then I started doing like group programs
Okay.
and teaching classes. And it was really cool, actually. I met through this class a ton of dietitians, and one in particular that I really like clicked with. She was a functional dietitian, so she focused on like root cause.
Okay.
Um, and so she did a ton of like testing on you to see like what you're deficient in, what you
Yeah.
need more, what's not being absorbed. And I was like, I feel like this could be tied into my group program really well because most people with osteoporosis aren't absorbing their minerals properly. So,
And I think that a lot of people that start taking supplements have just the idea of like, oh, I take this supplement and I'm going to get this, or I eat this and I'm going to get this. Can you go into a little bit more depth on
yeah,
how that works?
perfect example. So I had her do the class with me. So as part of the package, we were doing what's called a hair tissue mineral analysis.
Okay.
And so you cut a piece of your hair and you send it into a lab, and then they tell you basically based on what's coming out of your hair, what you're absorbing versus what you're not.
Okay.
Every single client I work with takes a calcium supplement.
Okay.
And every single person, I'm not kidding you, every single person was not absorbing their calcium. So it was showing high in excess in the tissues, which means
Yeah.
it's not going to the bones, it's going to the tissues. It's getting
Okay.
pushed out of the body, not absorbing. And so it's pretty fascinating because in order to absorb calcium, a lot of times you need to take like vitamin K2, for
Yeah.
example, to help direct the calcium to the bones. People don't know that. And so they're just blindly supplementing with calcium. And again, this is like hyper specific to the person. Like
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. It's like anytime you take any supplement, you should get tested first
Yeah.
because you don't know for sure if you're deficient in what you're supplementing.
Right.
And anything in excess isn't great for your body. Like
Yeah.
it can cause actual harm in certain scenarios, or like you're just peeing it out. So
Right.
like
It's an expensive
it's
gun.
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where you just want to be sure that you even need it before you
Yeah.
start supplementing with it. So I'm a big advocate of working with a dietitian if you can before you go down any sort of like supplementation
Yeah.
journey. That was probably the biggest example was people were like, I've been taking calcium for years, or like people who had been supplementing with vitamin D,
Yeah.
another big one for bone loss. And then she'd be like, you have way too much vitamin D. Like you are not deficient. You
Yeah.
have too much. So like let's stop taking vitamin D. So it's just little things like that where there's so much on the internet where it's like magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, those are the three most important
Yeah.
bone health nutrients, but like you might not need them. You might
Here's
just need
my
help
three
absorbing them.
supplements that I would take no matter what.
Yes. So it's just interesting because I think the more I learned from her specifically, I ended up becoming a client of hers down the
Okay.
road because I was so fascinated by this. Because I don't think people really know that that's a problem is like if your body's not set up to absorb things properly, like the supplement you're taking might not be doing a damn thing for you.
Right.
So it's
Well,
like,
I mean to not make it a super simple example, but if someone's really frustrated and you're giving them the correct answer, but they're not hearing it, like it doesn't matter. Like it's not
Exactly.
coming through.
100%. And so I think that's like people think they can out supplement things, and it's just not the case.
Mhm.
So I think you really need to dig into like the root cause. And it was a really awesome program. And so we ran that for a while, and then I got pregnant with my son.
Yeah.
So, but at that point, I had built a big community and I was able to roll out an app. And
Yeah.
so, this was an easier pregnancy transition because I was able to keep some income
Yeah.
while I was taking time off with him. And I ended up being able to stay with him really for like 9 months,
Amazing.
which was amazing while I still supported my clients, but through an app is much easier because
Yeah.
people really only reach out to you like if they're having issues or like need help with something, want to reset a month or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's more like troubleshooting versus like individualized coaching.
Yeah. Do you feel that there is more success through the individualized coaching or the app, or kind of hard to?
So I think I had more success on the app just
Yeah.
because you can see more people. It's more accessible from like a price point
Yeah.
standpoint. Like it's cheaper. It's $35 a month. But the whole thing with the app is like it doesn't include coaching.
Yeah.
It's just the videos I film all myself. So like it's individual clips for each exercise. But that is for the person who feels comfortable exercising on their own,
Yeah.
just wants a program to follow.
Yeah.
I feel like as a trainer, you get more out of like your one-on-one clients because you have more interaction. You get to
Yeah.
know them deeper. You get to see the success like in person. So like when I started doing one-on-ones online, we would do Zoom calls. And
Yeah.
so I'd watch them work out and see them gaining strength. So that's always really
Yeah.
satisfying, I think, when you're seeing improvements in real time. And I always did for my one-on-one clients and my group clients, we did check-in and check-out
Okay.
assessments where you do the same set of tests when you start and then the
Yeah.
same set of tests
Oh,
when you
that's
leave.
great.
And it's the coolest thing. Like it really hypes people up because there's always success in all the areas.
Yeah.
It's just like some of them will be like mind blown, like my balance got 10 times better. Like
Yeah.
it's just fascinating. So I think seeing now I'm not a part of those as much from the app because you don't see, I'll get messages every once in a
Yeah.
while, but it's not to that same extent of like seeing it in real time and like sending them their numbers, being like, look at how you improved, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it's so interesting because like pretty much I'm not gonna say all of it works, but if you're doing the exercises that your coach or the app says, like it's
Yeah.
going to work. But like if
Yeah.
you go to your chiropractor, they give you that dreaded piece of paper with 4 exercises, and they're like, "All right, do these for 15 minutes a day, like you'll be fixed." And like, yeah, like you're right, but if I'm not doing them in front of you, like it's not gonna happen. So
Yeah.
being able to like know yourself and
Yeah.
understand what
100%.
you can do,
Right. And
but
I
also,
think,
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the motivation I think for osteoporosis or like improving your health in that way is pretty dramatic. So I think the
Yeah.
motivation's a little bit higher, and
Yes.
I'd say that definitely helps with the success.
Yeah. And I think it's when, obviously, like from a financial standpoint, it was more of an investment when you wanted to do a one-on-one program versus
Yeah,
like the app. I think it's easy to pay $35 a month and not do it.
yeah,
But I think it's less easy when you're paying like a higher number a month to have like that individualized coaching to
right,
skip. Like you want to put more effort into something that you're investing more into.
yeah,
So I always felt like my one-on-one clients were my most motivated.
yeah,
Um, and then my group clients were, most of them were every once in a while you get a couple that like you could tell we're half in, half out,
yeah,
but for the most part, I feel like gave it a good effort. But it's with the app, you'll see people won't log in for months and, you know,
yeah,
I think that's just when it's like a lower entry point, right?
yeah.
You're probably not going to be as consistent.
Yeah, we're bumping up the motivation like a 1 or a 2, and we might need a 6 today. I don't think the
Yeah, exactly.
$5 is gonna push us.
Yes.
So how did we break into like the barefoot stuff, or what was that for you?
Yeah, so it's kind of hand in hand, I would say, like with the training business, because I connected with a ton of different experts over that time, like
Yeah.
a ton of physical therapists. I mean, everyone on the internet now has a specialty. I'm sure, you know that. It's
Yep.
like there's someone who specializes in a pinky toe, whatever. It's like so specific. And so I started following a few different physical therapists who were talking about barefoot shoes. And I really got interested from a training standpoint, not like
Okay.
an everyday wear standpoint at first. I was like, I just want to feel better in my workouts. Like I kept
Yeah.
having really bad low back pain when I was squatting, and I just felt different when I had kids compared to prior.
Yeah.
I was just trying to like figure that out. And obviously, like there's always been the people who've like lifted in Converse because they want that flat feel.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I guess I kind of understand the concept of like being flat so you can feel. So I bought my first pair of barefoot shoes and I was like, oh my God, this is so different. Like
Yeah.
it was night and day different. You actually feel the floor
Hmm.
when you lifted, which was like, I'd never felt that before because all my shoes were way too cushioned.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that I just felt better in my workouts. I wasn't having as much low back pain in some of
Nice.
those areas. And so the biggest shift for me happened though when I got pregnant with my son,
Okay.
because at that point I was wearing my very first pair was a pair of Vivos,
Okay.
black pair of Vivo barefoot, like the typical training shoe you probably see.
Yep.
And so I hadn't worn barefoot shoes at all with my daughter during that pregnancy, and I had horrific foot swelling, low
Okay.
back pain, like all the things. And then with my son, I had been wearing my Vivos, like, because I'm a trainer, I wear workout clothes
Right.
most of the time. And so I noticed, I was like, wow, we would do family walks all the time. And I'm like, I don't have foot swelling. That's really odd. Like, I don't
Interesting.
have low back pain like I did with her. Obviously,
Yeah.
some of it's still there, right? Because
Yeah.
you're pregnant, you're carrying like a watermelon in front of your stomach. But like I didn't to the same degree. And the
Right.
foot swelling was really where I noticed it because I, at the end of my pregnancy, had to switch to like only wearing Birkenstocks because I couldn't fit my feet in
Yeah.
anything. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. And it was the only thing that I had changed from pregnancy one to pregnancy two.
So what's the theory behind that? Is that because your feet are actually having to work because they're going to be circulating the fluids more? Or
Yes.
how does that work?
So your foot is getting stronger inherently because you're putting more load on it. Your shoe's
Yeah.
not doing as much of the work. And I think I obviously am not a doctor, so I can't prove why I had more swelling,
Right.
but in my mind, to me, my feet were getting stronger. They were able to carry more load. So
Okay.
as my body was changing, my foot was more adapt to handle that load
Okay.
because I had been walking and like Vivos are very minimal
Yeah.
on the barefoot spectrum. Like they're one of the most minimal shoe you can buy. And I didn't know that at first. I just
Yeah.
was like, I like the way they look. And so that's what I started with. And so that's my theory as to why, because I feel like my body was just better equipped to handle like some
Okay.
of that pressure.
So
But
does
then
that mean the swelling is from just your feet and ankles getting beat up then and then it's
I
trying to
think
heal?
so.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I mean, again, there's
Yeah.
no like scientific proof behind this, but it was just like personal experience. I think like my body just couldn't handle the weight. Like
Okay.
my feet weren't strong enough to handle the
Yeah.
extra weight and the way you're carrying the weight is very
Yeah.
odd, right? Because it's so front heavy. And so yeah, it was just like one of those things I noticed. And I was like, wow, that's really weird because it was a very noticeable pain point in my first pregnancy compared to my second.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I feel like as people get older in the older population, they get more cushion and then they're
Mhm.
wearing the leg sleeves and then they're
Yes.
trying to the compression. And I feel you're putting a cast on your foot and
100%.
then it's just atrophying and then not getting used and then it just continues the problem.
The problem. And as someone who has worked with seniors for many, many years,
Right.
like when you see the foot deformities that happen from bad footwear and just bad habits, right? Like
Yeah.
it just, I think it put it into a different perspective because it was like something clicked in my mind where I'm like, oh, that's probably why. Because if you're walking around with your toes squeezed together for
Yeah.
years and years and years, especially in like dress shoes,
Yeah.
for women, high heels. That's why women have them so bad.
Yeah.
It's like, no wonder our feet are so screwed when we're in our 80s and 90s because they've been just so tightly bound for so many years.
Yeah.
And like your feet bear all the weight of your body. So like if you're walking around, it's not like your hands are taking off some of that pressure. It's like your feet are the foundation of your whole
Yeah.
chain. So I felt like the more I read, the more I got invested. And then I started changing some other shoes out here and there. And I was just like, I'm just curious. Cause like flats for women, 9 out of 10 times are like insanely uncomfortable. So I was like, I'll try, just a couple. I'm not going to go like throw every pair of shoes out. But like, I just kind of slowly over time started trying new shoes that I thought like fit my aesthetic and
Yeah.
also were better for my feet. And I just was like always reaching for them because they were way more comfortable. And so then I think as you kind of go down the barefoot wormhole, you start to notice that socks are just as bad.
Yeah.
And they squeeze. And if you think about it, you're probably in your socks longer than your shoes a lot of
Mhm.
times, especially for people like myself who work from home. And so it was one of those things like I saw a video and it was one of those like trace the foot, trace your foot barefoot and then trace it with your
Yeah.
socks. And I was like, oh my God, my socks. I got to look at my socks. And so then I started down that rabbit hole of trying to find socks that fit. And there are a lot of brands that do them, but a lot of them are European.
Okay.
And so it's like, are you going to import your socks from Slovakia? I
Right.
don't know, especially not now.
Yeah.
But it felt like I should be able to go somewhere or I should be able to like find something local and I just couldn't.
Okay.
And then factoring in children, like I think that was really what pushed me to start my current company, Era Basics, because it
Yeah.
was like I couldn't find socks for them. And
Mhm.
then it's kind of like once you see the tight shoes and tight socks, you can't unsee it,
Yeah.
especially with like people developing feet. And so I just started down this rabbit hole of like, I cannot find socks. Like, where are people finding these socks? And then the
Yeah.
only things that kept coming up were toe socks, and I
Yeah.
just can't do it. I can't do it. I did another podcast with a friend of mine, and we were joking because I'm like, I'm a child of the '90s. Like, they had their moment
Yeah.
then. I could not stand the feeling. I've never been able to get over the feeling.
It just
We
doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
it doesn't work. And I no shame to people that love them because like
Yeah.
I get it. I understand that that's like the most freedom you will have in a sock, hands
Yeah.
down. It's like comparing mittens and gloves. Like you cannot make a glove a mitten. They're just
Yeah.
or vice versa, right? Like they're just not the same. Um, but it just something like I can't get over the feeling. You've got two little kids.
Yeah.
You're not gonna wrangle them into toe socks. Like God bless the people that do. I'm
Yeah.
not one of them. I can't get my kid to wear like regular gloves.
Yeah.
So like, no way am I like wiggling a
I'm
4-year-old.
happy if we get socks on them. Like my wife,
Yes.
so they have barefoot shoes, and she's like, "Oh, the socks are gonna be like impeding their toe box," and I'm like, "Their feet smell."
Oh, they stink so bad. Oh my God. Especially my son wears the little baby Vivos.
Yeah.
His feet, when he gets home from school, smell so bad. I'm like, I cannot stomach this scent.
Yeah.
So I'm making socks for all of us.
I have a problem. I'm gonna fix it, and you're welcome
Yes.
to everybody else that I solved that for.
Yes, yes. So it kind of just started out of like lack of availability as a
Yeah.
consumer. And then I was like, you know what? I feel like this is a product that needs to exist and I'm just gonna go for it. And so I decided to launch Era. This was August of last year.
Yeah.
Is Era.
And since then, it's been a little bit of a trek to get to success.
Yes, it's for anyone who's interested in manufacturing a product. It's not for the faint of heart, I will tell you that. It is a super fun journey. Like I have enjoyed every second of it because it's like it's like business 101 in real time. Like you're learning everything as you go.
Yeah.
Like supply chain, like where do you want to manufacture? What are the tariffs? What are the import fees? How to work with a customs broker? Like there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. And I think if you're doing something like a product that you really care about, you just have to stick with it. But
Yeah.
I will tell anyone, it is double, if not triple, the time that you think it's going to be.
Yeah. So
Um,
have you launched the product? Have you where are we at?
so the black crew socks are literally on a boat shipping as we speak. And the white crew socks, we had a delay with their knitting start date because there was a shortage of yarn.
Okay.
So the yarn has been ordered. It's about a 3 to 4 week process to knit
Okay.
them. And so you can do different shipping cycles, obviously.
Yeah.
I decided to do sea shipping for black since we're on a little bit of a lag with the white, but I'll
Yeah.
probably air freight those, which is more expensive. But I want to get everything in-house so I can at least start shipping something.
That's phenomenal.
But we were supposed to have inventory in May.
Yeah.
It's a slow process, slow burn. I think the Black Sox will be here in December is the
Okay.
targeted like land date.
Yeah.
Because that it takes like 30 to 45 days to ship if you do sea shipping. And
Yeah.
it's the cheapest option, obviously, but yeah, it's a slow process. And on top of that, like just the knitting, but then also the quality check and
Yeah.
like you have a third party lab do lab testing on them to make sure there's no harmful
Oh,
chemicals.
that's great.
So yeah, that's something I'm passionate about, obviously, especially with kids, because you're
Yeah.
like, you just don't want any sort of harmful like dyes or anything in there.
Yeah.
So after all of that, and then of course we had an issue on the black where like it was like a small percentage of the inventory had an issue that we had to fix.
Yeah.
So then it's a cycle. It takes a while.
So do you have a pre-order list where they're all sold already? Are people chomping at the bit?
Yeah, people are. I actually, so this is obviously you and I met at the Barefoot Shoe Expo in
Yeah.
Denver in May. And the interest has been like so much higher than I anticipated. Because
Yeah.
I think I went into it thinking like people are gonna just rake me over the coals because I'm not selling toe socks.
Yeah.
And the reception was way different than I thought. Everyone
Yeah.
was super supportive, super excited. Even avid toe sock lovers were like, this product needs to exist because like my wife, oh hello. Like my wife hates them, or I've got little kids,
Right.
or even certain people that were like, I don't want to wear toe socks every day because sometimes I'm in a hurry and I just want
Right.
something to throw on.
Yeah.
So it was actually like a very positive reception. And at the expo alone, we got like 300 people on the wait list.
Let's go.
Uh,
And it's also that's not one sock per person. We're ordering for
yeah.
a week.
So it's honestly the organic growth has been really
Yeah.
awesome with this brand because I think what's very different about my other business versus this one is like I felt like I fell into the social media trap with that one where it's like you got to post all the gimmicky reels and
Yeah.
like sending audios and whatever. With this one, it's just like I've been very intentional about sharing information that people actually care about and
Right.
like not overdoing it. People don't need to see 100 gimmicky reels. They just want to know when the socks are available for
Right.
purchase. So I try to give like relevant updates. So right now, I can't technically do a pre-sale until I know when I'll have inventory for sale
Gotcha.
because there's some restrictions around that
Hey, I
about
mean,
when.
Elon sold a car that he hasn't produced in 7 years. I feel like we
Right,
can do
that's
whatever
true.
we
That's true.
want.
But Elon's probably not selling on Shopify. So, I joke because I'm like I would love to have like a pre-order like set up,
Yeah.
but there's like a time limit on when you can collect somebody's money and deliver a product. So
Okay.
until I know specifically when
Yeah.
I might do a pre-order, once I have like the inventory, because we still have to do the photo shoot and get
Right.
all the images online and everything. So it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
But right now, I just have people on a wait list on the email, and then I'll send out an email as I get updates. But only pertinent updates because I also hate getting spammed with emails. So more so just like here's where we're at,
Yeah.
inventory is in, or whenever pre-sales go live, all of that will just be handled over email right now.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful because as of now, the white crew socks will ship December 29th is like our
Okay.
tentative date.
Yeah.
And right now, depending on cost, I'm hopefully going to do air freight for those. And that is like a 5 to 8 day window versus
Yeah.
40 days. So it's a lot quicker. So I'm hoping that pending everything, we should be able to be live for sale in January.
Yeah. And more exciting business talk. But as far as getting things made in the US, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of factories that will be doing those things unless you want to start your own factory.
It's what I've learned during this process is cost. It's very hard because I think people want US made products, but they don't want to pay the cost.
Okay.
And so, like, for me to make the same sock here would be like 5 times the price. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And even we're manufacturing out of India. And the factory is wonderful. They've worked with some really big brands, and very like reputable
Yeah.
lineup that and they have solid working conditions. They have third party like companies come in and analyze everything for
Yeah.
them. That was important to me. I wanted to make sure that the workers are treated well and that, nothing shady is going on because it's hard to know
Oh, absolutely.
what's going on in certain factories, right? And so what's great about India is all the cotton is local.
Oh, very nice.
So you're not having to like source in product.
Yeah.
So that cuts down on the cost, the overall cost as well. And so now, obviously, with tariffs, those are ever changing.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's about a 50% tariff for incoming goods from India. So
So how does that work for you? So when they like, where does the tariff take place and you're paying that? How does that work?
So basically, I work with a customs broker and an international freight shipping company, and they handle you. You essentially give them power of attorney to like handle everything on your behalf,
Okay.
and then they charge you a fee based on that. And so you pay obviously for like the cost of shipping, whatever
Yep.
that fee is, and then they'll all the customs brokerage fees, the import fees, everything comes through this brokerage, and then they bill you for it.
And then the tariff itself,
Is
that
tacked onto that.
and that's tacked on to whoever it's shipping to or whoever's purchasing the product.
Yes. So
Got
I will pay it on import.
it. Okay. So the idea of, I guess, tariffs would be, hey, like let's try to incentivize being it made in the US. But
Yes.
what the problem is, it's still
It's
cheaper.
still cheaper. It's still cheaper. It's like significantly cheaper. I think even with my all-in, obviously, like I'll know my full landed
Yeah.
cost once the bill comes. But on paper, as of now, it would cost me like 2.5 times more to make it in the US than it is with the tariffs. So it's pretty significant. The other issue with manufacturing in the US, obviously every product is different. This is just
Yeah.
speaking to my own, is MOQ. So your minimum order quantity
Right.
is much higher in the US than it is in some other countries.
Well, let's talk about that because I feel like if we're here for like small businesses, I feel like it shouldn't be that wild. Like I was just a little bit of a tangent when it
Yeah,
comes to like credit card companies, if they're working with like Walmart or like mom and pop, you'll give Walmart a better discount. And it's like,
yeah.
hey, like who do we want to do well here?
And
But
that's the problem, I think, with tariffs and just this kind of landscape we're in right now for a small business, because a lot of small businesses can't afford to do US based
right.
products. It's
Yeah.
just too expensive. Your minimums are way higher. Like even when I had my initial call to source where we wanted to work, because I work with a company who helped me
Okay.
source a manufacturer. And when we sat down, I originally wanted it to be a US based
Yeah.
factory, and they were like, okay,
Let me tell
um,
you.
let me tell you something. It was like most factories won't accept orders below like 5,000 is kind of the minimum. And so I think we kind of touched on we're doing white and black crew
Yeah.
socks. I'm also doing ankle socks for infants through adults.
Okay.
I have 22 total SKUs. So that is if you told me I had to have
5,000.
5,000 of each SKU, like people don't have, that's why you see so many like crowdsourced funding projects
Yeah.
for these businesses, because you can't, we're funding this ourselves and
Yeah.
it's like a huge out of pocket expense to get the business up and going. But so then you're telling me my fee is significantly higher to make the sock, and now I got to buy way more product than I
Yeah.
do in some other places. It still doesn't incentivize a small business like mine, at least,
Right.
make the jump here, because I'm like, it's still cheaper because I don't have to buy as much, and it's still cheaper to make it there.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's hard though, because especially they're always changing, and it's always like an ebb and flow of what is it going to be today.
Right.
We were joking because like there was a point where it was only 20%, and I'm like, can we just get this on a boat, get it
Yeah.
over here before it changes? And then it bumped up to 50, and I'm like, of course, like now I'm just stuck paying a higher bill. But all of
Yeah.
that feeds into, people keep asking me like, what's the price going to be?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't know
Yeah.
until I know my total landed cost because it's very ebb and flowy right now.
Right.
And shipping is such a big question mark until it lands here stateside. And I know exactly all in what it cost me to make these socks. I can't
Yeah.
justify like a cost yet. And so I think that's what makes it tricky because then people think of socks and they're like, well, I don't want to pay like insane amounts for socks. And
Yeah.
it's like, I understand that, but I don't think people understand all the things that go into it. And
Yeah.
then it's like, I want it US made. And it's like, okay, well then pay me $20 per pair of socks. And then they're like, well, that's way too
Yeah.
expensive. And it's like, but you don't understand the cost that goes into everything.
Yeah.
There's so much. And so I think that's what's frustrating as a
Yeah.
brand is you're like, I want to create a great product. I want it to be affordable, but then we're also held to the fire and you
Yeah.
have to make a profit to make, money, obviously, to support the business. So
Well,
it's just like,
I think most people usually only hear like the last 30 seconds that you just said and not the
yeah,
first 15 minutes talking
yes,
about the full business and everything that it goes
100%.
through. And it's just in general, it's when you buy something nice, like say you get a bad pair of sweatpants versus a nice pair of sweatpants, could
Yeah.
be $10, could be $40, and you're probably still wearing those older sweatpants. And when you put something on like barefoot shoes and you finally feel comfortable, it's like, oh, what would you pay for this? It's like I just paid $165 for shoes.
100%. And it's I think what's funny too is like people don't realize because they'll just say like, oh, it's just socks. Like how hard can it be? And I think what people don't realize is that these are not typical socks.
Yeah.
Like this is not something that's mass produced today. That's why it's been so difficult to produce because the machines are not built to make socks that have this more definitive foot shape.
Hmm.
They're built to make tubes.
Yeah.
And so I think even just the sheer design alone and how much we've changed, because like if you see, there's some brands that make foot shaped socks now. And a lot of what they do is like, if you look at the sock, seams typically hit like higher up on the toe.
Okay.
You move the seam down quite a bit, and then it makes more of this like exaggerated foot shape.
Okay.
But the issue I had with that, because I went that route initially, and I posted a reel. I think the last reel that's on the Era page shows like different samples of the socks that I've
Yeah.
had throughout the time. The issue is with that design in particular that we kept running into, it puts this awkward tension point on like the fourth toe. It's like right
Okay.
above your pinky toe, because it's this really steep, exaggerated line down
Yeah.
to meet the seam. And so I kept finding that like, yes, having the dropped seam is nice because it's like a roomier wiggle space, but then it cuts off those toes and squeezes the outer toes.
Love it.
So
Great.
like I kept like we went through, I mean, I'm not joking. It was probably 15 rounds of sampling on the crew sock alone just to get it right. And I
Yeah.
ended up like you'll see there's like a seam line, but there's no actual elastic in the toe.
Okay.
Um, it's just called what's called auto toe close. So it's just essentially like the seam joins together, but it's not elastic.
Yeah.
And what we did is we added this extra layer underneath that to give us more width at the top.
Okay.
So it still kind of looks like the seam hits higher, but it actually allows for more space in
Okay.
the top of the toe. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have that awkward tension point on like the fourth and fifth toe, like a lot of the socks, at least that I tried had.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a little bit of a different design than some of the other options that are out there. So people might be like, oh, this doesn't feel like a wide box toe box, but
Yeah.
it actually is when you lay them out, it's a much wider shape.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting, but we went through so many samples and I was so hesitant to bring that line up because all the other brands were dropping them so low.
Right.
I was like, it's all about the space and how the sock feels on your foot. And at the end of the day, like
That's the point.
that's the point is for it to be comfortable. It's not like a visual aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, how do I achieve the goal of making these as comfortable as I can make them?
Yeah.
And they're super comfortable. So I'm excited for people to try them
Yeah.
whenever the time is, but yeah,
Yeah.
they're
I
super,
mean,
super
all,
comfortable.
all, all of it sounds amazing. It's super impressive. How do you keep your shit together with all this going on mentally, physically? What are you doing?
I joke. I feel like during the week, my life's like very regimented. Like we've got two little kids, they go to school. I have like my dedicated work hours that I try to knock through as much as I can. And then I've gotten better as I've gotten older at like turning off at the end of the
Okay.
day, just because I feel like you can't always completely turn off. I think when you're a small business owner, you always have to be somewhat in tune with like what's happening. Especially because a lot of my emails come through at really weird times because I'm working with India. So it's
Yeah.
like middle of the night, I'll get an email and just trying to like turn my brain off and focus on like I'll get to it in the morning.
Yeah.
Like 'cause I also have to be mom, I'm also a wife and a partner and I'm trying to be like something to everybody. But I think making time for my own workouts is kind of
Yeah.
where I have like my biggest stress relief and like what I have to prioritize. I also, despite my lack of cooking efforts in college, have gotten into cooking and baking.
Let's go.
So I've had my own health issues. I actually, after I had my son, I found out I had Hashimoto's,
Oh,
which is an
lovely.
autoimmune disease.
Yep.
And so taking care of like my health is very important to me at this stage in my life. So I feel like trying to not overstress myself and know when it's okay to like walk away for the day is
Yeah.
huge. You could work every hour of every day as a small business owner. I'm sure anyone listening, if they are, can relate to that because it's can't can't always turn it off, but just
Yeah.
try to be like as intentional as you can with
Yeah.
your time.
Absolutely. To finish things up, we'll end with the last two questions that everybody gets. What's
Yeah.
your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
Wow. That's a good one. I think prioritizing like foods and movement that you enjoy, and maybe not things that are like being shoved down your throat by social media or like health influencers.
Yeah.
I always say a workout's only as good as you sticking to it. So like you could have the best workout plan on the planet, but if you hate it and you don't want to do it, then it's not beneficial for you. So I think finding movements and foods and things that you actually enjoy and can adhere to, that's how I stay healthy.
Okay.
What I always say to my clients, like if we're ever doing something that like you absolutely despise, please tell me because if it's going to cause you to like not do it, I
Yeah.
don't want that to happen. So, I think there's a lot of information about like what's best, especially from like a fitness standpoint.
Right.
And I think yes, you should incorporate some of those things, but like mix in the things that you love. Because if that's what's going to keep you like adhering to a plan, that's what's
Mhm.
most important.
Absolutely. And then what's something from your life that you think people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
I think you can always reinvent yourself. That is like the theme of my life. I have changed. I've lived a lot of lives. I'm 35. I feel like I've lived 100 lives at this point. But I think it's a lot of times people get stuck in a job or stuck in a role or stuck with a partner or whatever the thing may be that like you feel like you have to be in because that's how you identify in this moment. And I think
Mm.
it's okay to shift. Um, I never thought I would have an IT career. I never thought I would be, I guess, a fitness influencer or starting a sock company. Like I think it's okay to not identify as one thing
Yeah.
and to just not be afraid of like reinventing yourself if that's like what's going to bring you more happiness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
There we
probably do
go.
it too much.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Absolutely.